Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today we're going to look at the 15th game in my Spiel des Jahres series. The Spiel des Jahres is the German game of the year, and this is generally given to what the German gaming press thinks is the best family game of the year. And this is Camel Up. This is the 2014 winner, and it's designed by Steffen Bogen. It's essentially a racing game, or really more of a betting game, where players are going to be betting on which camel will be placed first in each leg of a race, with very simple actions. Game plays in maybe 20 to 30 minutes at most, and it plays from 2 to 8 players. If you get the expansion, it goes up to 10 players. So it's almost a betting game, almost a party game. And let me just show you how it works, and then I'll come back and let you know what I think about it. This is a setup for a game of Camel Up, and at the start of the game, these camels are going to be randomly placed by rolling dice, which are contained in this pyramid. And each player is going to get a set of cards, one for each camel that's running the race, with their symbol on the back. And they'll also get one of these Oasis tiles, which are two-sided. So there's Oasis and Mirage sides. And essentially these could be played to help influence the movement of camels and earn you income. And essentially this is going to be a betting game where these camels are going to be running a race by running around this track. The game will go until a camel moves over this finish line. And essentially what each player is going to be doing on their turn is one of a number of actions. The first action that's possible will be to take a die from the pyramid and roll it, and that will move a camel. And you'll notice that these camels stack upon one another. I'll explain how that works exactly in a minute. So this essentially means that you would get this tile, which is going to be worth 1 coin for rolling, and you'll just keep that by you. And then you shake up this pyramid, and you'll notice it has this little handle on it. So you shake that up, you push the handle, and 1 die should come out, and there we go. So now we've got a 2 for orange. You'll place that on the orange tent and move the orange camel then 2 spaces. And these camels are stacked, so if it's on top, it will just move by itself, 1, 2, and that would be its new position. But let's say we had moved the blue camel. You notice the blue camel here has the white camel on top of it. If that had moved to, it'd go 1, 2, and then it would end up on top of this stack. So it would carry the white camel along with it, and it would end up on top of the green camel. So when the green camel moved, the blue camel would essentially move again. So that's the way that these camels are going to move. So each camel will move at least once per turn, unless it's carried by other camels, as depicted by the fact that there's 1 die for each camel in this pyramid. Once every camel has moved, that will constitute a round. The second thing that you could do on your turn is that you could choose to place your Mirage tile or your Oasis tile. So the way that that works is you just pick an empty space on the board. It can't be adjacent to another tile from a player. So you notice it has the player's symbol on it. And if ever a camel lands on that, it will move forward or back, depending on which side of the tile you play, 1 space. And it will also pay the owner of it $1, and it will remain there for the round. Then the third thing that you could do is essentially place a bet on a camel. And there are 2 different ways that you could bet. So there are essentially these tiles here, and there's 3 in each camel's color, that are essentially you betting on the camel finishing either first or second during this leg of the race. And the leg goes until every camel's die has been rolled. Then these will be scored. If your camel would be in first, you would get this amount. If the camel would be in second, you would get this amount. And if the camel was in 3rd, 4th, or 5th place, you would lose $1. And I believe that each player will start with some money at the start. I forgot to look that up. I forget that exact amount. Then you'll notice that these are going to be stacked with the lowest on the bottom and the highest on the top. So the first person to bet on a camel gets the, which essentially happens when there's the least amount of information out on the board, gets the highest payout. And then the payout decreases over time. So there's a stack of those tiles for each player, or for each camel, and those could be taken by a player for their action. So this player might simply choose to bet on the, well, since the orange one is up here, maybe they would choose to bet on the orange one. They would just take that tile, place that in front of them. That would be their entire turn. So the other way that you could bet, let's say this player wants to be really risky, is that you could choose one of these camels to either place first or last at the end of the entire race, so at the entire end of the game. So essentially you're betting that when 1 camel passes this line, the camel will be furthest ahead or furthest behind. And the way that you're going to do that is you'll take the card for that camel and you'll place it face down in a pile. So that would take your entire turn as well. So other players might do that over the course of the game. I'll just do that at random. And those will essentially just ensure payouts for those players potentially at the end of the game. So the way that a round goes, like I said, it'll go until every camel has moved. Let's just resolve these so I could show you that. So here white would move 2, 1, 2. Then let's say yellow moves 2, 1, 2. Then green would move 3, 1, 2, 3. Then blue would move 1. So that would be all of the movements. Let's just say that's how things played out. That would constitute the end of a phase. At that point, any of these tiles that were still on the board would get returned to players. Players would get their coins for rolling the dice, so 5 coins would be rewarded for those, and then you would evaluate any of these bidding tiles that were taken. So for example, if a player had this tile, since white is in first place, and if if camels are on the same space, whichever is higher in the stack is considered ahead. So white would be first, green would be second, then third, fourth, fifth. Whoever had this tile would get 5 points, for example. If somebody had the green tile, they would get 1 point for each green tile they had. And if anybody had a camel who was further back, they would lose a coin for each of those tiles. So for example, yellow is in third place, so they would lose 1 coin for each of these tiles that they had. They'd return those tiles all to the supply, and then all these dice would go back in the cup, and a new round of the race would begin. So this is essentially how the game will go until, like I said, one camel finally crosses the finish line. Let's just say this camel brought this camel along with it, and these were the final results. We had white back here, let's say. Now at that point, you'll simply evaluate these long-term bets that players have made. So first of all, you can look at last place, and you can see on the board that prints out the payout. It might be hard to see here, but it's essentially 8 for whoever guessed that the last place animal first, then 5, 3, 2, and 1, and then anybody else who's incorrect gets a -1. So for example, that's incorrect, this person would get 8, and that's incorrect. So that's how you would resolve that. Players would either gain or receive money based on this. And for first place, let's see, incorrect, correct, so 8 money, and incorrect. If there was another yellow card down here, that person would, like I said, then get 5 money, then 3 money, and so on for the correct guesses. So at the end of that, whoever has the most money will be the winner of Camel Up. All right, so that is Camel Up, and I think that this is a pretty strange entry among the list of the Spiel des Jahres winners. Not because it's an oddball game, although I guess to some degree it is, but because it's really something that you will want to play maybe once or twice and then set aside for a while. It's not something that I think most players are going to be repeatedly playing hundreds of times, unlike some of the games that are winners. At the same time, I think that it's, for what it is, for a 20 to 30 minute game, it actually works quite well. It's very easy to understand what you're doing. There's not really that much skill. You could try and guess at your odds, but really it's a betting game. It's almost as if you're betting on, any sporting event or what have you. The way that the dice come out is interesting, and the camel movement rules are pretty interesting as well, because a camel could be in the back, but then all of a sudden piggyback its way up toward the front of the line. Also, I like the way that your actions involve often just taking a bet. And sometimes you have to, because of the game playing up to 8 players, if you're playing with a lot of players, you might have to take a bet well before you have much information about the camel's movements. If players start rolling the dice, the round might end before it gets back to you. So there's always this interesting balance in the game between taking a bet early and waiting till there's more information out on the board. And as soon as it's clear that a camel's going to come out first in the round, everybody will snatch up that camel's tiles, even if it only means gaining a coin or two. And that's I think both the most interesting thing about the game and maybe the deficit of it, because sometimes with the base game especially, a camel could fall behind, and just be clearly out of the race, and then there's just going to be a flurry of people just betting on that camel to lose entirely. The expansion does fix that a little bit. I'll mention it does have catch-up rules for the camel in last place, I think the expansion also fixes one of the problems of this game, which once it hits 7 or 8 players, you might not get a second turn in a move, depending on how the round plays out, or a second turn in a round depending on how it plays out, and so it can just feel somewhat chaotic and arbitrary whether you win or lose. At the same time, I think that the game does play well. Especially, I would say maybe 4 to 6 players is probably where I generally like to play this game, just because it seems like you might have slightly more chance of making an informed decision as opposed to just betting and hoping things go your way. That might say more about me as a gamer than about the game itself, however. And like I said, with the expansion, those higher player counts do become viable because you can make betting partnerships with other players and whatnot. I won't go into all of those rules here. So overall, this is, like I said, it's almost more of a party game. It's almost more of a light bidding game than anything, and it's something that you'll want to play occasionally, and it's very group dependent. If people are into the spirit of the game, cheering when a camel moves in a certain way, you'll probably have a blast with this game, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. If people want something that's deeper and more strategic, this is not going to fit the bill. It just simply isn't that type of game. So I've seen this game fall flat with certain gamers, and I've seen them, incredulous that this has even won the Spiel des Jahres award. I think that I'm able to approach this with its appropriate niche and appreciate it for what it is. It's, again, something I just occasionally am happy to play, not something I bring to the table that often, but it is a unique entry among the Spiel des Jahres winners. So those are my thoughts on Camel Up, and thank you for watching.